Welcome everyone. I see folks joining in already. We'll just give it another minute to see those numbers go up. All right. I know folks will keep joining in, but we can get started, and then hopefully by the time we get to the presentation bit, we'll have more folks in there. So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Ditch the last minute panic and rock Giving Tuesday instead. My name is Sneha. I'm from the CanadaHelps team. And today I'm joined by Victoria Leonhardt and Nicole Danesi, who will be leading this webinar. I'm just going to get us started with a land acknowledgement first. So our team at Canada Helps is grateful to have the opportunity to meet and work on many Indigenous homelands across this land we share, Canada. As settlers on these lands, it is important to acknowledge that our Vancouver team is located on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. Our Montreal team is located on the Ganegaha territory, and the land on which we operate in Toronto is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. Sorry. We want to express our respect for the territories we reside in and honor the diverse Indigenous people who have lived and worked on this land, both historically and presently. We, the staff and leadership at Canada Helps, are committed to being active participants in reconciliation. We are committed to continuing to amplify Indigenous voices and learning how our work affects Indigenous people. And now, just a little bit about Canada Helps for those who are really joining us for the first time. Canada Helps sparks generosity and powers the positive change that Canadians want to see. As the country's largest online donation and fundraising platform, built for busy charity volunteers and staff who are focused on sparking change, Canada Helps is a trusted partner that helps Canadian charities raise critical funds for their causes. Unlike other platforms, Canada Helps is uniquely a Canadian charity, which understands the challenges that charities face and leverages its national reach to help charities raise funds from new supporters. Since 2000, more than 3.5 million Canadians have donated over $2.3 billion to charities using Canada Helps. And now, some quick housekeeping. If you have any questions during this presentation, please type them into the question log at any time. It should be visible to you on the right side of your screen. We'll also go through the questions, some questions during the Q&A portion at the end, and we'll be sharing a recording of the webinar afterwards. So you'll be able to watch the recorded video on demand. And if you face any technical difficulties during this time, please let us know, and we'll try to resolve it the best we can. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. First up, we have Victoria Leonhardt. She is the Senior Manager at United States and Canada Hub at Giving Tuesday. Victoria supports community campaign leaders in the Giving Tuesday movement, helping them collaborate, mobilize networks, and drive local impact. Before joining Giving Tuesday in 2022, she coordinated the regional Give 906 campaign at Grow and Lead Community and Youth Development. Victoria has over a decade of nonprofit experience and specializes in capacity building, strategic planning, civic engagement, and volunteer recruitment. She was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie and is a member of the Bushawana First Nation. We also have with us Nicole Danesi. Nicole is the Strategic Communications and Brand Senior Manager at Canada Helps. She is the Giving Tuesday Canada country representative among a network of more than 100 official country campaigns around the world, and was a previous Giving Tuesday community leader in her hometown of Mississauga, Ontario. Nicole is a 2025 Civic Action Diversity Fellow and was also recently named a 2025 Social Impact Emerging Leader by The Peak. I will now hand it over to our expert speakers to get us started. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Suneha. And thank you to the 191 people on the call so far today. I know we'll also have a couple people popping in and out. We are so excited. And one of the things I'll say off the top is between Victoria and I, not only we share two things in common mostly. Not only are we big Taylor Swift fans, and we could probably do a whole webinar when it comes to Taylor Swift, we love Giving Tuesday. We've been involved in the movement for many, many years and have been part of the different campaigns on different levels, whether it's community movements or national or global movements. And today we're really here to bring our knowledge in order to help your charities ditch that panic, as we rightly named this webinar, and get ready for Giving Tuesday. So with that, Giving Tuesday is coming. In case you have not put it on your calendar as of yet, it is happening on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. It changes every year after Black Friday and Cyber Monday, whenever that falls. And it is a day to give, and it is a growing movement. And I am hoping that the individuals on this call today are not feeling like Buddy the Elf on this GIF here from the movie Elf, and are not panicking and are walking into the giving season with confidence and with strategy and with the right preparation. Now, on that note, I realize how distracting this GIF is, so forgive me. But we are going to launch a very quick poll. We want to get a sense in terms of who is on the call today, and it should pop up if I do this correctly. We want to get an understanding. Thumbs up, Suneha and Victoria, if you also see it, or I'm thinking it's working. Okay. Okay, so in terms of Suneha, you may need to help me close it, but we'll see. So we want to get a sense in terms of who is on the call and what your engagement is in terms of your Giving Tuesday campaign. So if you're able to answer this quickly. Suneha, I'm hoping you can also help me close this. Okay.
Yes.
We will
Yes.
close it and we'll go through the results.
Sure. Yeah, we have a good 72% voted, so not perfect 75%. Should we end the results now?
Yes, please.
All right. And this is that's where we stand with the results.
Okay. Do you mind reading them out to me? Because I am not able to see them on my end.
Oh, no worries, for sure. So we have 18% who have said that, yes, I'm excited and planning is underway. So congratulations on that. We have 69% who say that, yes, but I need to get started on the planning. We have 11% who say maybe, but they are not convinced yet. And we have 2% who are still uh, thinking like they don't understand the hype and wondering what's happening next.
Okay. Alrighty. And I think, okay, we're back. Thank you for that help there, Suneha. So for the individuals on the call, again, we appreciate it. And we're really here to not only walk you through the data, we'll go through this in just a moment, and I'm actually going to flip slides to go over the agenda. But today we want you to leave with ideas and also new knowledge in order to effectively develop your Giving Tuesday campaign and make it very meaningful. So I'm going to be walking through the first section of this presentation where we are talking about why charities should be participating in Giving Tuesday. Then we're going to move on, and Victoria is going to take us around the world in about 10 minutes or so with different examples of successful campaigns that you can understand and get some creative ideas going when it comes to putting your campaign together. And then we're also going to talk about keeping the momentum going year round. Giving Tuesday is a single 24-hour period on the calendar, and we know that it is an important day, but it can't be just the only fundraising day that your team is focused on. So keeping that momentum and riding that wave of Giving Tuesday is very important, which we will discuss. And then we really want to hear from you in terms of your questions. So as Suneha said at the beginning of this presentation, please pop them in the chat as we go. We are leaving about 15 to 20 minutes, which should be plenty of time to go through your questions and really have a discussion. So please, we want to hear from you. So with that said, one of the things I wanted to start off with is this busy scene. This is from, I believe, The Miracle on 34th Street, classic 90s movie, love it. And it is focused, it is really painting that picture of what we often see in malls or stores during Black Friday or Cyber Monday, and it is a crowded marketplace. And the reason I bring this up for this presentation is because one of the pieces of feedback that we often hear from charities in terms of why they are not participating in Giving Tuesday or why they have hesitations to participate in Giving Tuesday is because they feel like everybody is doing it. Everybody, every organization has a campaign and they're going to get lost in the mix and it's a crowded marketplace. I want to really challenge that perspective because any business, for example, that is developing their own marketing campaign for Black Friday would never question that type of thought process about a busy marketplace. It is really important to develop your Giving Tuesday campaign by thinking about ways that you can actually stand out in the crowded marketplace, as many people are out there and talking about Giving Tuesday. And we've seen it more and more from influencers to community leaders to celebrities, businesses also picking up and talking about Giving Tuesday and engaging with Giving Tuesday, but also, of course, charities as well. So it's really important to stand out in this crowded marketplace, but also ride the wave of Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday started as a day in 2012 after the idea that we have 2 days for shopping on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We don't have a day that is dedicated to giving. In 2023, CanadaHelps actually was the proud co-founders of Giving Tuesday, and we have been leading the movement since. And we really wanted to bring this to Canada because we thought that it's a really important moment for Canadians to be able to come together and to support a cause in the way in which they choose to, in a way that is meaningful for them. So with that said, the other thing I want to talk about is another piece of feedback and sort of squashing a bit of a myth when it comes to other hesitations around why potentially not to engage with Giving Tuesday. And sometimes we hear from charities that say it's moving money around, money that we often hear, that we often see on December 31st. And I put the fireworks on this slide because, as many fundraisers know, you're not often watching and enjoying the fundraisers on December 31st or enjoying maybe a alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage on New Year's Eve. You're often refreshing those fundraising dashboards or hoping for those, hopefully, CanadaHelps emails coming through when it comes to donations being triggered. But that's not the case. A lot of the donations that we're seeing on Giving Tuesday are net new, and it's not moving money around from December 31st to earlier in the season. And we're going to get into those data points in a moment. So before we dive into Giving Tuesday and some of the data that we have when it comes to why your charity should be getting involved in the movement, I want to take a step back and really look at the bigger picture of the charitable sector. One of the things that our team publishes every single year is our giving report, and this chart is plucked right from our latest giving report that we released back in June. And this is leveraging data from 2023 Canada Revenue Agency's data when it comes to tax filer information. And what we're seeing on this chart is really a line going in the wrong direction. So what this is telling us is in 2005, we had 25% of Canadians claiming charitable donations on their personal income tax. Every single year since, that number has declined. And in 2023, that number has landed at 16.8%. So this is not the news story that we really want to see. as part of the sector. We want more people engaged instead of fewer. And I will say, it is not all bad news in the Giving Report. Go download it, give it a read. It's on Canada Helps, and there's a lot of good news stories in there too. But this is a trend that we are seeing. We are seeing donations really being shouldered by older, wealthier donors, and we need to find ways to engage particularly younger donors and build that pipeline so that your organization can remain sustainable in terms of financial dollars in order to execute your mission. So one of the things we want to highlight here is we're going to dive into some data points, and our team at Canada Helps, we have a data team that works very hard to make sense of the numbers. And one of the things I want to highlight here are a couple of stats in terms of what we are seeing among Giving Tuesday charities that are actively participating in Giving Tuesday. Before I do that, I want to highlight the fact that in 2023, Giving Tuesday represented 3.5% of all annual giving on Canada Helps. That's one day, 24-hour period represented by 3.5%. I don't have a stat right now about 2024, but it is around that same rate. So it is a significant day on the calendar and not to be missed. Last year, I've worked at Canada Helps for almost 10 years now, and never would I have imagined that I would have seen, as much as I love Giving Tuesday, and I believe and I understand the power of the day, I was even personally surprised to see Giving Tuesday surpass December 31st last year on Canada Helps. And last year on Giving Tuesday, we raised $16.2 million on Canada Helps, surpassing December 31st by several $100,000. I will also say that if you remember, there was the Canada Post strike that took place at the end of November, December, and about 2 days before December 31st, the Government of Canada did announce that they were extending the charitable tax deadline. So I will acknowledge that that may have something to do with it as well, but it is Giving Tuesday and December 31st are two of the biggest and most important days of the year for Canada Helps, and it was quite impressive to see Giving Tuesday surpass December 31st last year, and it's nothing to sneeze at, as they say. So one of the things our team has done is we have done a deep dive in terms of trying to understand among charities that actively participate in Giving Tuesday compared to charities that are not actively participating in Giving Tuesday, what is the difference and the end result for those two types of organizations to understand at the end of the day, is Giving Tuesday really worth it for your nonprofit? So one of the things to start off with here is to highlight the fact that charities participating in Giving Tuesday on Canada Helps has grown from 28% in 2018 to 42% in 2024. And I am imagining with all now 220 of you on the call today, we're hopefully going to see even more charities participating, especially that 11% that were maybe at the beginning of this webinar who answered that poll, or the 2% that said that they were not understanding the hype, which hopefully Victoria and I will demystify and change your mind, unless perhaps you made a wrong answer in the poll, which I'm hoping you did. So really we're seeing more charities grow, engage in Giving Tuesday, and really lean into this movement that is worldwide. And I should also mention that there is a movement when it comes to Giving Tuesday on a global level. There's 100 country leaders that are involved. And then there's the national level for Giving Tuesday Canada. We are going out there in media to talk about the fact that it is Giving Tuesday and to go and look for local organizations like many of the organizations on this call so that Canadians can then choose to support. So this is really a stat I want to highlight here, and it really focuses on the fact that charities that participate in Giving Tuesday raise 500 times more on Giving Tuesday than charities that don't do anything on the day, that are non-participating organizations. Again, that is quite significant. And one of the things that Victoria and I will talk about later on in the presentation is we often hear from charities that say to us, well, we posted once on Facebook on Giving Tuesday. We had a $2 donation come through, and we didn't see anything come through otherwise. And one of the things that we will share that is good news and bad news, and I'll start with the good news first, is you have 89 days to develop a really fulsome campaign, whether it's direct mail or email marketing or social media marketing or other really creative ways to get your charity involved in Giving Tuesday. The bad news is, by sending out just one social media post on the day, that's really not going to cut it in terms of breaking through the noise, being creative, standing out, and really calling on your supporters to join you in this exciting moment and also attract new supporters, which every charity needs. The other thing I'll highlight here is participating charities, based on our data and our insights, generate 6.2 times more revenue from Giving Tuesday to December 31st. So they are seeing that opportunity, that Giving Tuesday is the opening day of the holiday giving season. It shouldn't be the only time you're asking for donations. It's really that opportunity to kick off your holiday campaign and let it run through the entire month of December, so that if you don't get the attention of someone on one particular day, if you keep asking them and keep engaging with them with really relevant and fulsome content, you'll be able to get that donation or support that you're looking for. And charities that participate in Giving Tuesday raise 2.5 times more on the average day prior to Giving Tuesday. And by 2024, this gap grew to 3.6 times more. So it's really showcasing one of two things. And you can kind of debate this internally, and I'm always up for a discussion or a debate when it comes to this. Giving Tuesday is turning fundraisers into better fundraisers, is one way to look at this, where charities that are actively participating in Giving Tuesday are seeing that lift in dollars throughout the year. The other way to look at it is, you may say to me, Nicole, maybe they're already great Giving Tuesday, or they're already great fundraisers. Giving Tuesday has nothing to do with it. But what that really also tells us is, if you're a really great fundraiser and you happen to be falling into this bucket of raising 2.5 times more on the average day prior to Giving Tuesday, well, then as a really great fundraiser, we're seeing those amazing fundraisers engage in Giving Tuesday. So no matter way you sort of slice and dice it or look at it, it is important to get involved. So now I'm actually going to hand this off to Victoria. And one of the things I want to say right off the bat before I hand it off, and you're going to, again, be brought around the world in just a few minutes to understand some really creative ideas and engaging opportunities for your organization to consider and think about for this year's campaign. I want to highlight the fact that at the beginning of this presentation, I talked about how there's fewer and fewer people donating to charities according to CRA data. One of the things I'll highlight here is, I mentioned earlier that we really need to build that pipeline of younger donors in order to support your organizations. And based on other data and research that our teams have conducted, we know that Giving Tuesday is very attractive to a younger demographic of donors, and they are often in giving in multiple ways. I won't get into and spoil some of Victoria's data that she'll share. And it's really important because younger donors are feeling like they are wanting to be part of something bigger. And Giving Tuesday is this global movement where there's millions of people actively engaging on the day, makes them feel part of a community, which I think that we're all really needing. So with that said, I'm going to hand it off to Victoria to dive into some of the numbers, or examples, I should say.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Really excited to share this first data point with you all. Giving Tuesday annually does a State of Generosity report, and we break down by country the ways that people give. And so this is our 2024 data on how Canadians give. And on the top right, you'll see gave money. Or that'd be the top left. Top right would be gave items, and bottom middle would be volunteered. Interestingly and excitingly, 36% of Canadians did all three in the year. They gave money, they gave items, and they volunteered. So I'm excited to share examples today that some of them do have an emphasis on fundraising and some of them don't. And the reason for that is that all types of generosity are good on-ramps to becoming monetary givers. right? So if you're not talking to your volunteer coordinator on how to solicit your volunteers to give money, if you're not thinking about how might our donors that are giving money want to give items, I encourage you to think kind of outside of the box and kind of de-siloing your giving community, because we're seeing that people are giving in all of the ways, and it could be to different organizations. It could be all to your organization. So really, I want you to think about that as we're talking through these examples. So my first example is going to come to us from Michigan. This is a small urban farm. They fundraised $10,850 to purchase the land used for their community garden. Their original goal was $5,000. And they said to their community, if we get $5,000, we can buy the land. But they also said to their community, if we raise $6,500, we can do some repairs, maintenance, and upgrade the garden beds. If we raise $8,000, we can install a new fence. And if we raise the $10,000, that'll allow us to also buy tools for our garden members. So this garden specifically generates no funds. People are able to go garden for free, collect the food for free. In this community, 90% of their food is trucked in, so not a lot of local produce. The community really rallied behind this because they are there at the gardens using it. And unexpectedly, they had a longtime donor call them day of Giving Tuesday and say, I'll give you the $5,000. Use it as a match. Let's knock it out of the park. So they actually had to pivot the morning of and change their messaging to be about the match. And they found out they had a donor closely following their campaign, and right around midnight made the donation to ensure that they hit their goal. They had a few more come in. They had the extra $850. So this was a really, really fantastic example of how you can be specific, how you can set a goal to do something really cool, but you don't want your fundraising to end there. So you can add additional milestones to be like, we want to do this, or we need to do this, but we also want to do this, and help us get there. So love this campaign example. For those of you that maybe are a smaller organization, or you have something really tangible that you could use Giving Tuesday funds to invest in, this is a really fun one. And I should mention, all of the ones I'm talking about today on the Giving Tuesday website, we have Q&A blog posts with the organizers of these campaigns, so you can dig deeper than kind of the overview that I am giving today. But Partridge Creek Farm, really, really cool, small organization. This was their first Giving Tuesday, and it was awesome to see them be super successful. Next up, we have streaming. So Nicole and I talked about streaming, and it's a niche thing. This might not be for every organization, but in Italy, they brought together a bunch of streamers on Twitch, and they realized that these streamers have really powerful communities. And so they had each streamer choose a nonprofit that they wanted to support during their live stream, so that it was really authentic. The streamers were talking about why they cared about this, the nonprofit, charity, or cause that they were fundraising for. And they did their thing. They played their games, they streamed it. People were able to donate right on the platform. That is something that Twitch offers. So it was a really fun way to have those influencers in the streaming space get involved and excited. If you have a streamer in your community, or you know that there's a streamer who cares about your cause, this could be a really fun way to engage, especially that younger generation of new donors, in what you're doing. All right, let's move on to Lasagna Love. This one is so, so good. So Lasagna Love is a network of volunteer chefs, and they make meals for anyone in need. There are no qualifiers. You can go onto their website, request a lasagna, and if there is a volunteer chef in your community, they will make the lasagna and deliver it to you. So they focus specifically on getting these volunteer chefs which anyone can be. There's also no qualification to being a chef. If you are a person who has a kitchen and you'd like to build a lasagna for your neighbor, you can become a volunteer chef. They created mini fundraisers, meal drives, and other creative acts of generosity that they then gave to their chefs so that they could go live on their own Instagram and share what it was like to build the lasagna. They could have a drop-off point for lasagna supplies, and they could bring together all of their friends, and they could have a lasagna building party with supplies provided by the community. They could do their own little fundraiser that would benefit their chapter of Lasagna Love. So I really, really love this one because, like I mentioned, a lot of times we think of our volunteers are our volunteers and our donors are our donors, and people who give items give items. And this campaign really kind of pulled all three together in that it had the mini fundraiser element, it's using volunteers as ambassadors, it's having a meal drive. It's really a creative way to think about how can we be in community and with community that we already have and use those networks to spread awareness, excitement, and engagement around what we're doing. So this is a really cool example for those of you that do have larger volunteer bases, that you can do something really easy, really accessible, and get people excited to participate. And then finally, we're going to head over to storytelling and the things we carry. So this is a global organization, Search for Common Ground, and they focus on peace building. And they invited their supporters to reflect on the physical, emotional, and mental burdens that we are all carrying. They explored how we can share these burdens with one another to build a more peaceful and connected world. So their campaign was called The Things We Carry. You can see one of their graphics here on the screen. And it tied together storytelling, community gathering, and digital activism. So if you are an organization that is interested in advocacy and telling the stories, this could be the type of campaign that you want to lean into this year, because they had some real impressive fundraising and real impressive engagement results. So I have their numbers because they blew me out of the water. So fundraising, this campaign raised $904,000 from 158 new donors. And engagement metrics for their campaign, they had just over 1 million impressions with about 10,000 engagement and also 10,000 video views across their social platforms. And that drove just over 59,000 to their website. And what I love about this campaign is that it ran November 18th through December 31st. So they were able to carve out Giving Tuesday into their year-end campaign instead of saying, we're going to do two separate things. They said, this is kind of our overarching theme for year-end, and we're going to have, we're going to use it for Giving Tuesday. We're going to use it for December 23rd, like Nicole, or 31st, like Nicole mentioned. And they really tethered it so that it didn't feel like going from campaign to campaign, but instead just amplifying the campaign around Giving Tuesday, amplifying it again around year end, and kind of having that through line through the entire giving season. So if you're interested in a campaign that allows people to give their voice, to share their story, and also raises some funds, this type of campaign could be one for your organization to consider. So that was a quick overview of some of the examples. Why I picked these examples is they really cover a lot of the things that we want to see people do to leverage the moment. So we talked about with Partridge Creek Farm, setting those clear, realistic, and stretch goals. Giving Tuesdays found that organizations that set a goal for Giving Tuesday are more successful than organizations that don't. I think that plays into, like Nicole said, you have to kind of put a little work into it, think about why are we doing this? What do we want to get out of it? So setting those goals, real important part. Again, tethering that giving moment together. We saw in the example how it went from The Things We Carry went from November through December. If you have a year-round campaign message, you can also tether it in with that. Giving Tuesday is a great day to amplify and celebrate generosity. We call it our annual celebration of generosity, but we know generosity happens every day. And so if you want to lean into generosity happening every day and just celebrate it on Giving Tuesday, you can do that, leverage it in that way. You want your messaging to be human, actionable, and community focused. And I think all four of those examples really touched on that. They knew what their communities needed. They knew where their communities were hanging out. For example, in Italy, online compared to lasagnas in their kitchens, right? So knowing where your community is and making sure that your messaging aligns with your audience, really important. Add other ways to express generosity. These examples touched on that. You can have a fundraising campaign that also has a volunteerism or an items element. You can have a giant items campaign that uses volunteers to stuff bags. Really think through what those on-ramps to being generous within your organization and charity look like, and kind of think about how many on-ramps you can offer around Giving Tuesday when people are looking to be generous. Curate a few to the many. I think Lasagna Love does that really well. They take a few of their volunteers, they train them in how to talk about what they're doing, how to set up the mini fundraisers, and then they leverage them to get out into their networks. So thinking about who it could be, board members, it could be volunteers, it could be influencers, but who are those people that are close to your organization that you can get out there talking about what you're doing on your behalf? Securing a match. This one is so fun. We love a surprise match, but we also love it when the match is already established and you don't have to pivot your messaging the day of Giving Tuesday. So if you're able to find a corporate partner, a big donor, or we've even been seeing board members collectively come up with their match pot. So you could ask your board to say, please contribute to our match fund, and they're the ones that fund it. And then you're able to use it. Nicole, I think you said you have an example of one that does that really well, not necessarily from their board, but they leverage a match really well. If you want to share that.
Yeah, there's two examples out in Atlantic Canada, actually in Nova Scotia, that have really stood out when it comes to a successful matching campaign. So there's Feed Nova Scotia, actually, that they're a food bank, and they work with Sobeys every year to secure a match, and every year they blow it out of the water when it comes to how much they not only hit that match, but then completely surpass it as well. And they're very upfront when it comes to how much they raise every year when it comes to their results. The other example, it's not exactly a match, but it's a great example, and it's a really feel-good example of a corporate engagement opportunity. There was a campaign, and granted, this was before the pandemic, where a local company, they had engaged their employees to support 3 different charities. And what they did was they had 3 different employees wear 3 different t-shirts. One employee wore a t-shirt for one charity, another employee wore a t-shirt for a different charity, and then the third employee wore a t-shirt for a different organization. And what they did was they went to a highly trafficked area in Nova Scotia, and they asked people that were passing by to choose the charity that they wanted to support and give a hug to the employee that was wearing the t-shirt that they wanted to support in terms of that organization. And really, it allowed not only the employees to participate in this campaign that was really feel good, but it also established that level of community and connection. And it really was allowing the company to step up and invite people to engage in a way and engage in a moment of generosity where they didn't have to participate in terms of making a donation, in terms of the people passing by. So I love that particular example. And this is it is September 4th when we are filming this live and recording this. And you still have lots of time to still secure that match. And it also doesn't need to be $1 million match either. It could be something as little as, for some organizations that are very small, it could be as small as $1,000, or it could be $5,000 or $10,000. For bigger organizations, it may be bigger amounts, but don't get overwhelmed by the idea that I have to secure $1 million match from my organization on Giving Tuesday. And you also want to take a look at any big donors that made a donation to your organization last year to say, hey, could I get in touch with them at this point this year to re-engage them? Hopefully you're re-engaging them also throughout the year and not just when it's time to ask for donations. But ask them, are they preparing to make a larger donation this year? And if so, could we leverage this for a match? But Victoria, why don't you finish us off in terms of those tips?
Yeah. Um, so like we've talked about, um, there is some effort that has to go into this. Not just planning day of Giving Tuesday, but really how you engage your new connections that you get year round. So if we go to the next slide, we'll look at those. A few things that we've seen charities around the world doing. Some of these may seem new, others may seem like, oh, things you're already doing. Amazing if you're already doing them. Hopefully, you'll get some new ideas. First up, personalizing your communication, making sure that if you know things about people, could be their birthday, could be they love Taylor Swift and they're going to celebrate her new album, whatever it may be. You're reaching out in those moments and just creating relationships with your new givers. We've seen acts of kindness initiatives happening more frequently where charities, regardless of their cause, are encouraging stories of kindness from people in that support their organizations to learn more about what motivates them, what types of kindness are they practicing throughout their day. It can help you really learn a lot about your givers. Gratitude drives. We often thank people after they make a gift. But what would it look like to have a gratitude drive where you thank all of your donors during 1 week in the middle of March when it's snowing and there's not a lot of feeling good? And then you get this little thing and it's like, oh, I remember, this is amazing. What a great organization. I feel like so glad I was engaged in that. So think about how you can make people feel like they're making a difference because they are, right? It doesn't matter if $5, $5,000, $5 million. No matter where people are on the spectrum of giving, they are making a difference with what they have. So making sure you're treating those givers like that. Art and volunteer activations, we've seen this more and more. Murals on buildings, bringing your giving community together to put a mural on a building or some sort of art installation on your property, or doing some sort of large scale volunteer activation. And the really cool ones are when you volunteer at another organization. So I've seen where some groups will bring together their volunteers and they'll volunteer at a partner's volunteer event under their charities brand. So really building that collectivism and community in your giving community and helping them to see all of the ways that you're partnering to meet needs. Contests and giving circles. Giving circles have been popping up more and more. This is where you pool funds together. You can do it as a community where multiple nonprofits participate, or you can do it as a single nonprofit where you highlight your programs. So people come together, they all bring $20. They vote on what they'd like to support after hearing presentations on the multiple nonprofits or the different programs that your nonprofit offers. And whichever gets the majority is where the funding goes. So if you're an individual nonprofit doing this and you have like 3 programs and they all need something, this can be a way to get one of those needs met in a really fun environment that brings people together to really understand what you're doing. Amplifying community stories. This is also a fun one to talk about because a lot of times the people involved in our organizations are really involved in their communities, right? And they're doing really cool things. And we might talk about them as volunteers within our organization, but maybe don't share what they're doing with other organizations or within their community. Maybe they were highlighted on the local news and it covers all of the things. Really amplifying when they're being featured and celebrating that they're part of your giving community. education, awareness, and advocacy with your community, having in-person events where people can come ask questions, your givers can show up, meet your CEO, have conversation, learn how they can help with all of the different things that your organizations are facing, especially if there's an awareness portion where if more people were aware of the issue that you're taking on, it would be helpful. Or there's an advocacy piece where maybe funding is at stake and you need to get people excited to help you make sure that that funding doesn't go away. These in-person collective moments can be a really great way to engage your givers. And then finally, feedback opportunities. Um, People who give love to know what's going on and they love to help. And so if there's something your organization is struggling with and you want feedback from the community on, your community of givers is a great community to tap into. Um, Hear the different perspectives from people with lived experience in your communities, right? So it is, it can sometimes be like, oh, we don't want to take this to our giving community because we don't want them to know what's happening. But they really want to help, right? They're involved and they're giving. So let them give their talents to help you kind of move through challenges that you're facing. So the example here is actually a group of women who did uh, more of a contest than a giving circle. They donated for every view that their video got. So they were doing trying to get acts of kindness and then video views, and it was a really fun thing in support of their Giving Tuesday campaign. So lots of cool ways that your community can stay involved and engaged year round. All right. I think it's question time, hey?
It is question time.
Amazing.
And I see some of the questions in the chat that I think Suneha is
Yes.
going to help us with, but also
Awesome.
pop in more questions if you have them.
Yes, for sure. Thank you both, Nicole and Victoria, for taking us through this amazing presentation. So yes, we do have a few questions, a few thoughts that I felt like might be worth kind of chatting about. But we can start with one. The first one being, why does having a younger demographic of donors matter? Whether they're older and wealthier or younger and wanting to give, why is the demographic important for sustaining the organization?
Mhm. I can take that one, Victoria. It speaks to a lot of the research our team at Canada Helps has actually published in our giving report. So when you think about it, when you think about the long term view of your organization 10, 20 years down the line, it's not only important to just think about the here and now, for example, of making your fundraising goals for your annual campaign. It's also how do we make sure we are building our community around our nonprofit so that 10 or 20 years from now, when older donors may not be there to support your organization anymore, they are able to tap into that newer community and newer demographic. So that's one of the reasons why we've emphasized younger donors when it comes to building that pipeline of supporters, but also engaging them in a number of different ways, even though, it is a challenging economy and a number of people may not be able to give to you financially, but there are, just like Victoria said, a number of other ways that individuals can support your cause. So keep that in mind, that your supporters shouldn't be only a pocketbook, so to speak, for your organization. You need to be tapping into them in a number of different ways to gain that support.
Thank you, Nicole. We have one question. I think this relates back to when we were talking about the numbers that we've been seeing with Giving Tuesday donations, that Nicole, you were presenting earlier, which is, and it leads to, how do people donate? Do they donate directly through the charity or through Canada Helps for these numbers?
Mhm. So the numbers that I presented in this presentation were all Canada Helps numbers, but Canada Helps, I believe we raised about $50 million Canada-wide last year, and Canada Helps data made up about 16 million of that $50 million. So it's a substantive amount. So we can kind of use that as a directive in terms of how people are giving on Giving Tuesday. And in terms of how people are engaging on Canada Helps on Giving Tuesday, we're seeing people donate in a number of ways. Of course, one time donations are probably the most important and most popular way of giving on Giving Tuesday. However, I will also say that we see a lot of people also setting up monthly donations on Giving Tuesday too. And we know that younger demographics also really love the subscription model of giving when it comes to setting up a monthly donation. So think about all those different types of ways that you can be engaging your supporters, and also in non monetary donation ways as well. Victoria mentioned the ability to just call and thank your supporters. That goes a really long way to build that relationship. So it, even though it is important fundraising day, also keep in mind that mix of touch points that you have with your supporters, not only on Giving Tuesday, but throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you. There is a question around, is it acceptable to email our list of existing donors with the Giving Tuesday campaign info and link?
I can also take that one, or Victoria, maybe we'll
I
tag team when
mean,
it comes to that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we have the same answer, Nicole.
The answer is you can take anything off of Giving Tuesday. And Victoria, why don't you touch on sort of some of the assets and resources you have there?
Yes, we absolutely encourage you to email your current donors about your Giving Tuesday campaign, potentially activating them to also ask their networks if appropriate. And we have a whole bunch of email templates that you're able to download, givingtuesday.org/participate. Starting next week, there will be all types of resources each week. Kind of depending on where you should be in your planning process, there will be resources released. And you can use anything. We say we provide a whole lot of tools and no rules. So if you want to copy directly from the document, paste it into an email, add your organization's logo, and send it to your current supporters, absolutely. If you want to craft your own email and not use any of our tools, that's fine too. We love to see it. It's we're here to provide as much help as we possibly can to the masses, right? So everything that we have will be on there, and we encourage you to use it as much or as little as you need it. And Nicole, do you have Canada resources as well?
We do. So they're actually moving to Canada Help. So currently they're living on givingtuesday.ca. Soon there was an announcement in one of our emails that there will be moving within the next 2 weeks to CanadaHelps.org. There's a number of different assets you can use. We want to make this as easy as possible for charities. So if you have any questions, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to the next slide just so I don't forget. You can email me in with my email at the bottom of this slide here. I'll also try to post it in the chat in case individuals need it there. And we're happy to support.
Perfect. We have a lot of questions coming through. Another one is, thank you for your training and your time. Regarding matching gifts, what language would you recommend organizations use to initiate companies or corporations to match the volunteering hours of their employees into a monetary gift?
Ooh, I like that one because it's marrying both monetary and non-monetary ways of giving, which Victoria really spoke to. In terms of verbiage, I think that making sure just keeping it really clean and clear in terms of exactly how the match would work. I think is the question sort of getting at sort of the pitch of getting corporate. I think that really being able to showcase how far the support could go when it comes to the impact is really important because a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders or decision makers need to see that end result. So if there's a way to do the math, so to speak, in terms of understanding the input of both time and dollars and what that can do for your organization, that really helps make that case.
Thank you. Also, thank you, Victoria. There are questions around templates. So Victoria is sharing one. We will make sure it reaches folks here. We have another question around if you have very few individual donors and more funding coming in from foundations, how do you leverage Giving Tuesday?
Great question. I think that potentially for foundations, it obviously depends because if it's a grant, you're using donations specifically for the grant intent. But if it's a foundation that you could be leveraging that donation as a match to try to go out and acquire new donors, that's one way where you could pair those two fundraising opportunities together. But Victoria, I saw you unmuted, so I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, this was a foundation that did it, but I feel like you could flip it and do it for foundations. It was, they did a gratitude, kind of like a crawl. They went to all of their sponsors from a recent event, Day of Giving Tuesday, and just thanked them in person. So depending on if these foundations are close by, it could be a day that you just focus on building your relationships with them, and reaching out and saying, thank you, here's some of the great work we've done. I just wanted to acknowledge that we couldn't do it without you. And I'm looking forward to continuing in the following year, and use it as an opportunity to thank them and continue the conversation. So hopefully you can get more funding next year.
Thank you. We do have a few questions more around kind of reaching out to folks. I think there is one around, is it acceptable, especially with the new privacy policies around, to reach out to previous donors, those who left their email addresses, for example?
Mhm. One thing off the top I'll say is in Canada, we have CASL as a law when it comes to email subscriptions. So general advice there is as long as you're following CASL law when it comes to who is on your mailing list, how you're adding people to your list, then if those individuals are rightly on your list in accordance with that piece of legislation, go for it. Reach out. They've provided their contact information because they care about your organization, and it's an opportunity to engage with them.
We have a couple of minutes, so we'll go through maybe a few more. There's one which again is a little bit around list building, which is what tactics do you folks find best for list building during Giving Tuesday? We have a big list and are soliciting emails to other local lists.
Okay. In terms of, I'll touch on the last part of that first. In terms of building your lists, again, I say go back and refer to CASL law to make sure that everything is following all the rules when it comes to email legislation. It's the Canadian anti-spam legislation is what is the longer name of CASL. And in terms of other ways of getting donations, this is where my marketer hat I put on. There's some really fun opportunities. So one of the things I would suggest in terms of consideration, one of the things you could consider is a simple quiz for your organization or cause can actually help you acquire new emails. So, for example, if I was running an environment charity and I wanted to try to build up that email list, there are tools and platforms online that you can leverage in order to build a simple quiz around educating people about the environment. And it could be very simple, very straightforward. It allows people to engage with your cause in a different type of way where they're walking away and learning something. And then at the end, ideally, you want to ask them for their email. If they went through the whole quiz and they actually went through all the different steps, clearly they're invested in your cause and they want those opportunities to be asked to join a community. And that could be the perfect way where you're building those supporters in a different way. So that's one fun opportunity. Making sure, I see so many organizations not adding their email subscription list where they can sign up on their website. That is table stakes. That's super easy. And make sure that you have that functionality on your site.
Thank you, Nicole. One more around matching donations. How do you find the matching donor? Someone who has already given a lot this year, or better to go after a new large donor?
I'm going to answer that as a speed round because I know we're at time and there was one or two other questions that maybe if we, I don't know, Suneha and Victoria, if we want to hang on and answer a couple more. whoever wants to hang around. But yes, go ahead and reach out to your larger donors in order to make a donation. Again, those are perfect, but of course, also reaching out to new donors. Don't stick with just one tactic. Try different ways. Reach out to corporate donations or corporate potential donors too. There's not one size fits all here.
We are at time, and of course, we're happy. I think if both Victoria and Nicole are okay with it, we can hang back for a couple of minutes, answer a few more questions. Okay, perfect. And if anyone has to drop off, we completely understand. Just as a quick note, thank you for all those who joined this. We will be sending out a follow-up email with the recording in the next few days. And over the next couple of weeks, we will try to answer as many questions as we can. We also have some follow-up resources for you. So for those hopping off right now, stay well and take care. So just a couple of more questions. Yes, I think there were a few around just I'm going to club a couple of questions. They're mostly around finding younger demographics and kind of trying to attract them. Um, I guess the question is that are there any campaign data or templates around it? And also, given that we should target younger demographics, is there any kind of data on what types of donations do they typically respond to better, like cryptocurrency donations, securities, penny, single, monthly, however
Mm-hmm.
that.
Well, I'll start, Nicole, with just like plugging the Giving Tuesday Spark website. Um, I know that's the youngest of demographics, right? It's typically between the ages of, I'd say, 8 and 18, these resources are appropriate for. But GivingTuesdaySpark.org is the global resource hub for all things youngest generation. And there are a lot of incredible young people all over the world who are fundraising for charities, who are advocating for the work that charities are doing at different causes. And they're really interested and excited to get involved. So there's lots of cool ideas specifically for that young age, of how you can get started in that engagement. Um, I work in the US and Canada hub, so I see a lot of US data. Um, Nicole and I are talking about how we may be able to get this data for Canada in the future, but our data for young people in the U.S. between 18 and 30 shows they're the least solicited, but the most likely to respond to a solicitation. And likeliness to respond decreases as people age, but rates that they're asked increases as they age. So it's really interesting to see, at least in the States, that the people that are most asked are the ones that are giving the least, and the people least asked are the ones that are giving the most. And I pulled up State of Generosity, and it looks like in Canada, the older generations report giving the most, and the younger ones are right around 50% though, the Gen Z and millennial. So they are giving, and but we don't in that survey we don't measure how they're giving, if it is crypto or securities or cash or time, right? It could be any of them. But we are seeing that on our end.
One of the things, just to pick up off of what Victoria was saying, from a tactic or method of how people are giving, especially among demographics, are 2020, I'm going to have to go back and double check this, but 2022 or 2023 giving report, we actually dove into these demographic differences between different generations. That is a really good resource. Even though it is about 2 or 3 years old, it's not going to change drastically, and you can refer back to that to get an understanding of how people are giving. I mentioned this earlier, but we have found that younger donors really love the idea of monthly giving because they're so used to a subscription model of making transactions throughout the year. But we're also seeing securities donations going up among a more financially savvy type of group where they understand sort of the tax benefits around securities donations. So with all that said, go download the giving report because there's a lot more in there about trends.
And just to add to that, I think there was a note around securities donation as someone kind of looking into that as a way. And I think I responded to that person that Giving Report also has some nice numbers around securities donation and why that is slowly growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's something that we're seeing constantly grow at Canada Helps in terms of the not only dollars, but number of people that are giving securities donations. Obviously, when you're making a security donation, it's actually a process. It takes several days to actually complete the process. So it's not something that you can start and finish on Giving Tuesday. But making sure that you at least have a mention of the ability to accept securities through Canada Helps. You don't need to start with any sort of brokered fees or anything that is expensive in that sense. You can just put up that Canada Helps form on your Ways to Give page and leave it there in case anybody does come across your organization and want to give in that way.
Do we have time to take one more question? And I think we can kind of wrap it up after that.
Yep, all good.
Perfect. There is someone who's asked if has anyone used Twitch streamers to host an online fundraiser? If so, how did that go? Might be also a little bit open to everyone out here, but Nicole and Victoria.
Yeah, so the Italy's 24 hours of streaming is all Twitch streamers. It's all done on Twitch through the Twitch platform. And I will make sure that in the email that goes out afterwards, I'll provide the case study for that so you can read through it on how they did it. Um, they were all Italian streamers in this 24-hour one that happened in Italy, but you could do it on your own with your own streamer and use a lot of the tactics that they used. Um, the other thing that I've learned is that Twitch also has guilds. So if there's a Twitch guild that aligns with your cause area, that could be another way to leverage the Twitch community.
Um, yeah,
And
I
Sneha,
think
I'm going to jump in and just, I saw one, sorry, I want to just address one thing that I saw in the comments because I know we're unfortunately not able to get to all the questions. There's some really great ones in here. If you want to, again, send an email to NicoleD@CanadaHelps.org. I'm happy to pick it up afterwards. But I did see Gwen asked a question about fees and cost. Just to be clear, there's no cost to join Giving Tuesday. It is a completely open movement. That's why Victoria said, Victoria, I'm not going to say exactly what you said because I don't remember exactly, but there's a lot of resources, but no rules in terms of leveraging the movement for your organization. There is associated fees that are low on Canada Helps in order to fund the building of the technology and all the security and back end work that needs to go into providing that safe and secure platform. But Gwen, just there's no cost to joining Giving Tuesday.
um, yeah, I think we got through most of them. Thank you for that, Nicole. I did miss that one, so thank you. There is one around. I guess we can put the cutoff time at maybe 2:10 and just answer a couple more that are just left in the.
Sure, for the 101 people hanging around, I'm happy to.
I guess this one comes true, which is like, how do you know if your seeking fundraising support is dead in the water? Basically, what is a good cutoff to stop wasting resources on a larger donor? Do you reach out to them 5 times, 10 times more? When do you know?
Oh, I think Victoria and I could probably speak for a long time about this. I think that with fundraising, you certainly need to try different ways of asking. I think you need to also really critically assess how you're asking. Because if I was to call you every day and ask you for $20 to give a financial donation, I think I'd probably be fed up by the end of the week, perhaps. But if you're calling me to thank me for my donation or tell me about a program that you're launching, there's different ways that charities need to be able to engage with their supporters, not just by asking all the time, which I think sometimes organizations can trip up on, but really trying to assess and evaluate how are we asking, what's the messaging, are you following up, are you sending those thank you messages and impact reports? But Victoria, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I think what you're asking them for too, right? Because sometimes we can be like, oh, I'm doing a capital campaign and I'm going to build a building and I'm going to name this room after the donor. And the donor's like, But I want to provide hockey equipment to the kids who are going to be skating on the rink. I don't need my name on the locker room. Like, I want to make sure the kids are out there having a fun time, and that's what I want to support. So knowing, especially with major donors, higher level donors, knowing their motivations and the things that they care about and why they support your organization, so that if they do say no during the ask, you have the relationship to ask why. Like, is it you're not interested in what we're doing anymore? Is it that this doesn't align with the things that you want to support? Is it that it's not a good time? You've got a lot going on in your life, and we can come back and revisit this conversation in a couple months or a year. So I think, especially with those larger donors, having a relationship with them to have these conversations and really learn about their motivation um, can help you make the best ask possible.
And we're at 2:11, Suneha. So we've
I think we did it. We there are a couple of ones which ask for a few resources, so we'll follow up with those folks for sure, and we'll share those resources down the line. But again, thank you everyone for all the great questions. This was a very engaging Q&A round, and we love that. And again, that's all the time we have today. Be sending out the follow-up recording as well as other resources. And thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in the next webinar. Thank you, Victoria and Nicole, as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Giving
Bye.
Tuesday.
Bye all.